Welcome back to our Lecture 2 for Unit Level 1 discussion on the origins of agriculture, culture, and civilization. Today's lecture will be focusing on the rise of the civilizations in Mesopotamia. Here we'll be looking at what it takes to make a civilization, the area known as Mesopotamia, and a little bit about a culture of one of those civilizations in the Mesopotamia region. While you're watching this lecture, please make sure that you put away all your distractions, including cell phones, TV, game systems, and things like that. And while you are working on this lecture, please make sure you have your Lecture 2 worksheet out and are working on it. If you don't have the worksheet, remember you can always click on and print it off from here, or just simply take some notes down. It's better than having nothing. Remember that during the video you are encouraged to use the pause button if you need it in order to get all the information. Please make sure you are listening to the entire lesson, not just the items that are popping up on the screen, but everything, because there are parts and things that I'm going to talk about that are not in the notes, but you are still expected to know. Now that all the reminders are done, let's get started. Setting the stage. How big of a deal was agriculture, do you think? Well, how many people do you think like to eat? Without agriculture, people would have to continue to be hunter-gatherers. People would have to roam the area looking for food. However, remember that once people realized the benefits of tending their own crops, people were able to stay in one place and have a surplus of food, thereby allowing for their population to expand. Once people started staying put, their dwellings began to get larger, and the areas began to become more organized communities. As population increased, cities gradually grew. And as the cities grew, there was less of a need for everyone to be involved in agriculture. Economics began to matter. People began to understand the value of work and trade. As more people were able to be fed, more and more people began staying in one place. These small villages would eventually grow into sustainable cities. Farming became easier due to advances in technology and the domestication of animals. The domestication of animals simply refers to the ability of people being able to keep animals round up at home or right outside their homes, kind of like cattle. Because of the use of agriculture, bigger harvests were a result from new and better technologies like hand tools. It is a fact that the more food you have in supply, the bigger the population that can be supported. The more food there are, or the more food there is, the more people there'll be. As cities grew, so did the responsibilities of those who lived there. Not everyone needed to farm. One farmer could create enough food for maybe 10 people. There was no point to having so much food. The technology of the wheel and the sail allowed for trade to occur over long distances. We'll talk more about this later. This was a time before any type of money was currency. No coin, no bills, nothing like that. The economy was mostly a type of a barter system, which is what they were using. And as cities grew, social classes began to emerge. Those people that were considered better than others based upon what they had or could sell would be considered at the higher levels of society compared to other people who may not have that same type of opportunity or ability. We also would see that religion would begin to become more organized as well. Based on findings, people began to worship in large groups at a specific location, rather than smaller groups and at their own homes or very small tent areas. They actually started to get together with people of other similar religious beliefs and worship together as a group. So, how civilization develops, you might ask. Well, civilizations are a complex form of culture that consists of 5 specific characteristics. First, every civilization consists of some sort of an advanced city. The size of an area doesn't distinguish a city from a village. You can have a small area of land that is considered a city. The opposite can also be true, where a large area of land does not necessarily mean it can't be a village. You see a lot of villages when you get out of the main cities, like farming areas today, for example. Hundreds and hundreds of square miles, but it's still only part of a smaller community or village. Not too many people there, but it's a very large area. The size of the region does not necessarily mean that it's a city. One of the key parts to having an advanced city is that it must also be a center for trade, the buying and selling of goods and or services. This creates an economy within the area for the people to live here and make money, because it's all about the money, of course. Next part of a civilization is that it needs to have specialized workers. Specialization is the development of skills of a specific type of work. An example might be someone who is good at making tools and turns that into a profession. Not everyone might be good at making tools back in the day, so they would rely on those few who did it really well. One specific type of a specialized worker might be an artisan. These people were skilled workers who make things with their hands. An example of an artisan might be a painter, sculptor, or just a builder. Although it doesn't seem that important in regards to the big pictures and how a civilization might function, artisans are what makes a civilization unique. You can learn a lot about a civilization just by looking at their artistic creations. The third characteristic of a civilization is its complex institutions. An institution is a long-lasting pattern of organization in a community. Things that have been there for a long time that help identify what was important to that culture or society. Can you think of anything in our culture that's been around for a very long time that is very important for our society today? Some examples of an American institution might include our government, our ability to practice religion, and the economy, or our idea of capitalism. These things have been around for a very long time and help to define to others what it means to be a member of our American civilization. Record keeping is also an intricate part of a civilization. Included with record keeping, you have taxes being collected, laws being passed, and the storage of grain or other similar items. Around 3000 BCE, which stands for before current era, scribes, or professional record keepers, invented a writing system called cuneiform. If you look on page 21 in your textbook, you can see an example of cuneiform. It's all simply a wedge that's pushed into soft, wet clay to make symbols. They would use this type of writing to keep records, to communicate and keep track of the different things they need to keep track of. Did somebody pay taxes? How much grain was produced during this harvest? Which person took this much grain from the storage? It's important to keep track of these things, because if somebody takes more grain than they're supposed to, and if it's not recorded, they're going to have a short on grain for everybody else. So record keeping, even today, is extremely important. Finally, you need to have some form of advanced technology. This is the last piece to be considered on whether your culture is actually civilized. Okay. An example of an advanced technology might simply include plows, pottery wheels, or the using of bronze in the creation of tools and weapons. Although these items seem very basic and insignificant by today's standards, even today, there needs to be some form of advanced technology in order for an area to be considered civilized. Earlier I mentioned something called bronze. Bronze is simply copper and tin that have been melted together, and you get a whole new substance called bronze. Bronze is very malleable, bendable, and easy to work with. It is a soft metal, but considering what the options were before, it is very effective in making the tools that they needed for their agriculture and weapons.